So it looks like Mississippi is now officially banning DEI. So let's talk about it. And I apologize in advance, this is probably gonna be a long one, but I'm gonna talk fast because this is that Mississippi wet cold out here and I am dying. So both the Mississippi House and the Mississippi Senate have now passed bills eliminating DEI in the state, and there's some variances between them. One of them focuses pretty much just on colleges, the other one includes everything starting at kindergarten. One puts enforcement in the hands of the IHL, Mississippi's College Board. The other one would allow the state to withhold funding from schools that don't comply. And every year, these schools would have to submit a report showing that they were not doing any DEI programs. But there's a lot of misinformation and confusion surrounding DEI as lawmakers try to justify this intense focus that they have on it. So let's dig into what it actually means. So banning DEI is kind of the political trend at the moment. There's a lot of states doing it. It's happening at the national level. And a lot of politicians here in Mississippi have pretty much made it their entire personality. And it's something we've seen them do in the past with other acronyms. A few years ago, it was CRT, or critical race theory. And we were told that this way of thinking was invading all of our schools and it was making all of the white children feel guilty or that they were innately evil or racist just because they were white. So the state banned it. And then it turned out it was pretty much just one class that was optional at Ole Miss that focused on inequality in the justice system. It was, in other words, kind of a boogeyman. And DEI looks to be kind of the same. Earlier last year, when lawmakers asked us through a survey what we wanted them to focus on this legislative session, we said lower prices and bringing back the ballot initiative. They didn't do either of those, but they did focus on DEI. Now, in the interest of full transparency, I want to be clear that I do have a bias in favor of DEI, not because of what I've read about or heard about it, but because of what I've personally experienced. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to sign up for an optional DEI session through work, and this was back before it became a buzzword, and so I was curious and I took them up on it. And I loved it, so much so that I started signing up for sessions every time they became available. And having done that, here's what I can tell you about it. Now, I am a straight white Christian male. The only thing I am missing on White Guy Bingo is a profile picture of me in sunglasses holding a fish. If anybody should have felt guilty or targeted or shamed during these sessions, it would have probably been me. But I never once felt that way, because that is not what DEI does. DEI, at least in my experience, wasn't about assigning blame or meeting quotas. Instead, it was 100% just about training our brains to consider the perspectives of those different from us. And it wasn't just about race. It was everything from gender to age to culture to religion. Even being a veteran was a particular focus of the program. And in a lot of ways, it was a great opportunity for me to get to ask a bunch of questions that I otherwise have always felt too uncomfortable to ask. One of my favorite words in the English language is sunder. It's the sudden realization that every single person around you is the lead character of their own story, and you might just be a background actor. A lot of people get that feeling at airports. And DEI for me helped make that more of a perpetual awareness rather than just a sudden or occasional observation. So with all that in mind, why are politicians trying to ban it? Things like racism and sexism are obviously factors we have to consider, but I think it goes a lot further than that. And here are 3 of the top reasons I can come up with. First, it's very possible that they just don't understand what it is. They've probably never gone through the program themselves. They probably confuse it with other programs, or maybe they just take it for a fact whatever they hear on cable news, which is something I'll get to in a sec. Maybe they saw someone who was incorrectly administering the program. Though I have to say, if we are banning things based on occasional incompetency, we would lose our state government pretty quickly. But yeah, option number 1, just plain ignorance. Second, ego. Now, most of us work very hard to get where we are in life, and nobody wants to be told that they had it easier than someone else. But we do have to remember that not all of us started at the same place, and some of us did have advantages that others didn't. For example, being a guy, I probably was offered more opportunities growing up than, say, my wife was. Now, that doesn't take away from any of my hard work or my accomplishments, but it does help me to identify things in the system that would need to be fixed if I want my daughter to have the same opportunities that I had. I like to think of it like merging onto a highway. Now, say you are driving on the highway already. You're going 80 miles an hour straight ahead. You've got a good cruising speed going, and you see another car about to try to merge on. Now, some drivers, they see this and they perceive it as a threat. Somehow that merging car is going to impact that speed that they've built up. So they speed up to try to prevent the merge or to keep that car from pulling out in front of them. In other words, they see it as more of a competition. But other drivers see it very differently. They see it as a shared journey, not a race. They understand that letting this car merge safely onto the highway is in everybody's best interests. The ones trying to ban DEI, Those are the drivers blocking the merge. And reason number 3 is power. Creating culture wars over things like DEI keeps us fighting among ourselves instead of looking up at the powers that be. Culture wars and outrage also keep the ratings high on cable news channels, so they're going to play that up as much as they can. As long as our focus is horizontal and not vertical, well, the rich are just going to keep getting richer and we aren't going to realize that it's at our expense. So all in all, I just personally don't see any way that DEI makes me a victim. It just doesn't happen. Nothing's being blamed on me. Nothing's being taken away from me. If anything, it's helping me become a better person. The actual victims are the ones that DEI was built to help. And taking this away from them is going to have consequences. Already we're seeing minority students losing grants and losing scholarships. We're seeing male-driven fields like engineering likely to stay as male-driven fields. And that eliminates possible breakthroughs and observations that could come from the other half of our population. We'll lose programs that help veterans adjust to civilian life. We're going to lose ADA protections that help those with disabilities. And the reason we seem to be wanting to get rid of it is because it might make a few guys that look like me feel bad. So just some food for thought as you watch the lawmakers celebrate these new bills being pushed through. And as new candidates rise to take their place and they reference things like DEI and other programs to try to drum up support and outrage, just ask yourself, is that outrage making our lives better? Is this change making our future one that we all want to live in? And at the end of the day, who is actually benefiting from this? Because it's not you and I.